Well, Marquise, as we pull out of the prison, man, what a impactful impactful message you brought on. I mean, the class was just, I've never seen him take notes so fast, man. I mean, you were absolutely hitting it and really making these guys think. I mean, the richest man in Babylon was the theme. But man, tell me about your heart being out here. And I know you serve men all the time, but tell me what's on your heart leaving out of here today.
I mean, it's always inspiring to be able to have a captive audience of people that are, focused on what does it look like, behavioral, spiritual, and mentally, to modify their lives to exemplify a version of themselves that they want to see. And so just being able to water that seed that you guys have planted it's incredible for me. I mean, it's just always great to know that, I'm part of that rich nutrient soil that's going to hopefully produce amazing things, you know what I mean? And that's just the thing is, like, you just never know how great things are going to be. It's like you're expecting, like, if I will just be happy if I get this, but it's like, it's going to be tenfold. I know it. Those guys were really excited, and they're really engaged already, just watching them do introductions and how happy and present they were before I ever said a word. And so those kinds of things are encouraging to remember, what I get to be a part of by coming and speaking here.
The three things of gratitude and I am statement, you touched on that when we were talking, but what a great way to teach them healthy habits, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that, you don't know if you don't know, but just by causality of by having them to do that, they will be able to learn, a skill that's going to serve them well. And again, for me, it's been something that's been instrumental to my success. And then being able to sprinkle on how they can see me go from being somebody that was in their shoes to somebody that may be able to give them shoes, And so now they're in a position to be like, wait a minute, and you're telling me you use this same process? And it's like, well, yeah, you may not know why they have you doing it, but I do, because I know what the benefits are. Let me shed some light on you so you don't, it's kind of like that thing where your parents tell you something, and you're kind of like, but when your friends' parents tell you something, you're like, ooh. So I felt great being able to, be that extra voice to double down on the skills and things that you're teaching them already.
Well, you connected so much because, like you said, you've walked in their shoes.
Yeah.
Right. And give me the highline touch on that how you, when you were incarcerated, how you made a comment. What was it that, man, I just was never going to have enough time in the day because I stayed so busy.
Oh, yeah.
But talk
Absolutely.
about that.
So being in prison, the thing is like, how do you do your time? A lot of times people will spend their time trying to entertain themselves. Entertainment is fleeting because it has no long-lasting results. I mean, it's not mind-numbing. You can play games or whatever, but I mean, you can only get so good at Candy Crush or whatever before you're just like, this is dumb too.
Yeah.
But if you are consistently thinking about what it is that I'm doing when I get home, what are the habits that I'll need to have in order to, because people always say, I'm going to own a business, I'm going to be engaged with my kids and my, well, what are you doing now? Are you writing them letters now?
Right.
Are you giving advice now? Are you learning advice now? Are you reading parenting books now? So what I did was, while I was inside, is I got as many jobs as I possibly could. Handling other people's mail was not something that you're supposed to do. As a matter of fact, the other inmates was like, bro, you ain't supposed to do that. And I was like, I don't care. They asked me to do it. And I don't mind doing it because it gives me something to do. Yeah. And so by me going to the mail call and guys not being there, I would grab their mail and take it back and give it to them. And I became, next thing you know, I was like the full-on postal man. Like, they got to the point where the guards would just drop the bag and give it to me. And you know what I mean? And then I would just do that. But I also cleaned their offices. And so it was just consistency over time, built the trust that I would need to be back into society. But it also made me run out of time in a day. I just had only so many there's only so many hours in a day. But if you're going through 24 hours, you're sleeping 8, and you're working the rest, like hard working for yourself or someone else or doing projects, then you're like, oh man, I got to do this tomorrow. And then next thing you know, a month has passed. Then 2 months has passed. Then a year's passed. And you're like, whoa, okay, I'm coming home soon.
Yeah.
But now you're equipped with all the tools and resources that you need to keep your habits strong. It doesn't mean that you're going to succeed. It just means you now have strong habits. Now you start to trade those prison habits, like delivering mail, for what do I get to do outside? Is that cutting my yard? Is that cutting my mom's yard? Is that making sure that I'm cleaning the bathroom at my mom's house or wherever I'm staying? Like those kinds of things, especially when I get into a job, like am I sweeping and staying busy while I was at the warehouse? I was working in the warehouse in prison at point.
Mm-hmm.
And when we didn't have a truck to unload or to build, we just sat around. Most of the guys just played cards and colored or what. I was just up sweeping.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I would just always stay busy, which then got me to be a forklift operator. Then after the forklift operation, then I became, one of the managers. And people used to get so mad. But for me, I was just trying to run out of time in a day just to keep myself and my mind engaged on, I am getting prepared for out of here, not staying focused on just living my life here.
Well, I thought, so what I hear you when you're talking about that is you created purpose in the moment.
Absolutely.
Right? Your purpose wasn't going to be an inmate and a convict.
That's it.
Right? Your purpose was, like you said, to prepare for when you got out of here. Who's the man that you wanted to be? What habits were going to be instilled because you did it then? You didn't wait for it. One of the things we talked about today was procrastination.
Yeah.
And how many guys go, well, I'm going to do it when?
Yeah, I'm going to do it when. I mean, and if you look at the interview process that I was doing, I was really running a podcast. I just wasn't recording it.
Yeah.
I was having these interviews and these conversations with these men inside, which now transitioned into podcasting perfectly.
Right. Yeah, great lessons. So you brought layout from The Richest Man in Babylon.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. I'm sorry. Think and Grow Rich. And so you talked about that whole thing, but your passion is fatherhood, and so I'm taking it that's something you use as you're teaching dads to be engaged.
1,000%.
So walk me through. I'm not asking you to go through all 22.
30.
30. Is it 30?
Yeah, 30. So it's 30 Causes of Failure. It's out of Napoleon Hill's book, The 30 Causes of Failure. What we learned is that if the purpose of a thing is unknown, abuse is inevitable. And so Dr. Miles Monroe taught that lesson. And so what I learned is that if you don't know what is causing you to fail, it's easy to repeat the mistake. And what we say is if, getting the same result and you repeat it, it's insanity. But if I educate you and help you to understand what they are, well, then now I don't have to feel bad, for one, because now I know you're choosing to do it. And then two, now you have a resource to go back to say, hey, how am I doing on the progress of these failures? So that's why we have guys go through it. Any dude that I've ever mentored ever, they have to read that list to me out loud. Okay. And so what I do is they, a lot of times they don't want to read it, but I make them read it to me. One, because it's a reminder to me of how many of these things am I paying attention to. But two, now I heard you read them. And you can't ever say you don't know, because I heard you read them. And you read them to me, so now we're both on the same page. But now we also, when it comes correction time, or when it comes time for us to discuss a problem or something that you're having, now we have common language. Right. So now when we're talking about procrastination, we're not thinking about what my grandpa told me or what my mom said. We're thinking about, okay, what was Napoleon Hill's definition that we agreed on that procrastination is, and how detrimental it is to success.
That's fantastic. So as you were interacting with the class, because there was a lot of that, what was your impression of the class, how they were engaging, what was on your heart during those times?
Yeah, I mean, they were leaned in. The guys were taking notes, they were writing stuff down. Sometimes I would say a quote or a quip, and they would be like, hold on, wait, let me write that down. What was that again? And it one, helped me to be accountable, to make sure that I wasn't just spouting nonsense. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times people don't realize is like when you hold us as speakers accountable, that helps us to get better. So that way we're not quoting numbers that don't make sense. We're not just saying things like, we're teaching them to trust but verify. And so that's going to help them be successful as well. But they were leaned in, engaged. When we took a break, they all were lining up and they're like, hey man, I want this. I need to know how to. Yeah. And it was just really cool to see their engagement, their activity on how to become a better version of themselves or to get more understanding about any one other thing. And so those are the kinds of things that really stood out to me, is how hungry they were to know more about what we were talking about.
What do you think about that library of books, and then if they take one and check it out, that they're held accountable to do a book report and share with the class?
I think that's the way I do it. That's the way you have to do it, because if you're just taking a book for book's sake, you're not going to read it with the same intentionality of knowing that I have to be accountable for this. And that's what this whole thing is about, is like accountability is what brings about responsibility.
So tie that to the business world, because a big part of what I look at, I'm working on this 1440 Inside Out, whether that's a book or the theory of it, because there's so much, like we saw today, that we're learning in that class. And there's so much incarceration, and some of it real, right? You get out into society and man, you got to figure out where you're going to make money to pay your electric bill. You got to figure out how to put food on the table. You got to deal with other people, a wife or a girlfriend or whatever it is, and they don't have that currently. But talk to me about how you see what you experienced in prison, what we're doing here in 1440, and how we bring that out into society to help, whether it's kids, it's business people. It could be a 34-year-old dad, father of two, that is married and has a good job, but inside he's imprisoned from it could be numbers of things. It could be fear, it could be porn, it could be adultery, it could be alcohol, it could be anything. So tie that to what you're seeing, the battle on the outside, and what kind of lessons you think we can bring from a program like 1440 out into the Main Street society.
So my brother Shaka Sinkoor has a book called How to Be Free, and he talks about the mental imprisonment of how he was in prison long before he actually was incarcerated. And so through that, 1440, what it's doing is helping guys to see past today. And so seeing past today is a lot of what the issue is like there's no vision. As God said, my people perish for lack of knowledge. But there's also, this thing where older men need to dream dreams and younger people need to, have vision. If they don't see past today, if they think prison is all that I'm working towards, then they will be incarcerated forever. Because once they get out, then it'll be like, oh, I got this hurdle, I got that hurdle, or, me and my fiance or wife or spouse got into this argument, baby mama drama, whatever the case may be. But if they're thinking about business, if they're thinking about something external, bigger than them, in the case of, Christ, in the case of how they impact those that they encounter, things of that nature, what that does is that helps them to realize outside, even though I may not be outside yet, I got to prepare myself. Even though in the business world, I may not have 50 customers now, what systems and processes do I set up with one customer that are going to permeate through that level? And so it helps them to start to marry that idea that I have to be more than just my situation. And the situation is what usually ties people down in that thought process. So I think the program, one of the biggest benefits is just really being able to help them to see past their own current circumstances to say, you know what, this is what we're going to do. This is what it looks like, and this is how it's going to happen. But then the fact that they have to be held accountable, because even if we're not on the yard with them,
right? What
happens is I heard you just say the 3 things that you're grateful for. I heard you say the things that you want to do. Are you doing that now?
Right.
Now they all also have the common language of the 30 causes of failure. And it's like, now I can see that in you. And is those the results that you're after? And so that kind of accountability inside transfers outside. Because again, customers hold you accountable with their dollars.
Sure.
If you're not doing what you said you would do to the level that you said you would do it, I'm not going to buy from you anymore.
Right.
And depending on the relationship that you built with me, intentionally or unintentionally, will determine if I can communicate to you about it. You know, because I could just not use you again.
Right.
You know,
yeah, I can go away.
Yeah, I can just disappear and never tell you anything. But if you've done it right, if you've done it according to Matthew 18, now I'm going to come to you and say, hey, brother, I didn't see you, weed eat my yard the way that you did last time, or I see that you left some screws out when you changed, my lights, or you changed that fixture, and I have small children. Could you be careful? Because I would hate, that's where that communication comes in, versus who done this? Man, that guy's an amateur. I'll never use him again. And so helping those guys to realize how important that stuff is. I mean, we talked about, how many of these guys planning on starting a lawn company? Yeah. And then I asked, well, how many of you are working on the lawn here now? Thinking about the tools they have at their access. That helps them to go and do excellent things in their current planning for their future. Because then they can learn what kind of equipment, how to repair it, what things to do, not to do, so on and so forth.
So I want to talk about fatherhood here in a minute, but I want to ask a question that I've asked some of these guys and they've come out. So what would you tell your 16 or 17-year-old self about what you've learned in your journey in life? Because 16 and 17-year-olds are so tough to get through too.
Yeah.
Right? But what would you say?
I mean, that's hard for me to say, honestly, because at 16 and 17, I didn't have the proper structure of a father in my life. So without fatherhood, taking advice from a man is just not something you're built to do. Because men's insight and their guidance comes a little different than mom's. You know what I mean? It hits different.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit harder to break through the ice. But if I was to say anything, I would just say, hey, man, you are valuable. You're worthy. And what you're doing is going to have long-term effect, whether you know it or not. And it would have helped me to make some decisions a little bit differently. But then, there again, I wouldn't be sitting here with you
That's true.
doing what I am. So I'm grateful for every part of my story, the ins, the outs, the goods, and the bads, because I know that God uses everything for my good, and I wouldn't be able to relate as much as I do to these guys and have the impact with the dads that I did if I wouldn't have sucked at being a dad first.
Yeah. So talk to me, that's a great segue into fatherhood. I mean, you deal with this at ground level. I mean, we talked on the way out here, we've talked a number of times before, and you are in the trenches with these dads and getting dirty with them and the pain and suffering for you that comes with that, right?
Yeah.
But I want your opinion. I'd love to hear kind of how you view fatherhood today, how you're viewing the challenges in your ministry, how people can help themselves, how they can help others. Share a little there.
I mean, the challenges are always the same in men's anything. It's, you got to get to the heart of men. Like, as I train my super dads, I get them to understand, like, you're not a surgeon, but you're the transportation of the heart. And so what happens is that you have the man's heart in your hands. And you have to be very careful. This is not time to throw it in the air. This is not time to see if it'll, this, that, and the other. It's not discovery time. It's time to get it prepared to be implanted into a child. And so I want you to think about what that means. That means he's dead already, and I'm transferring his heart into a child. And so what that does is that means I have to protect, I have to incubate, I have to make sure that heart is in the best condition possible in order to let his children, his wife, to receive that heart. And so for me, that has been our focal point, is just making sure that we get people to understand, like, when you're speaking to men, you're not talking to the seed, you're talking to an orchard. You have to see that entire orchard. Because if you start giving haphazard advice or use, his heart to make your grandstand, you may ruin the very heart of the matter of what you're trying to do. And there's a lot of times where people like to do these kinds of things because they just want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to be, and then they push an agenda that they weren't aware of because they weren't prepared. And so the complications that I have are just being able to understand that everything doesn't look the same for everything. You know, we don't have a graduation program only because you just never graduate from being a dad. You're going to be a father all the way up until grandfatherhood.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we convince a society who has made men the problem and made men the blame for everything? How do we then turn around and show the value, the intrinsic value that they have to a child and to everything else that you're trying to do? Whether it's growing a church or sustaining a building or sustaining a nonprofit or anything like that, it takes effort, it takes elbow grease, it takes building, it takes communication and harmony. If you're not able to harmonize with people, or if you're objectifying people or seeing them as a means to your end, it gets a little crazy. And sometimes men are taught that they are only as worthy as what they can bring. And so when they're in that objectifying mindset, if they're being objectified, like they say, hurt people hurt people.
Right.
And so by helping them to heal in motion, you know, and that's what we do, is we help men heal in motion. If you look at it like a river, we're on the river rowing, and we may see a dad that's drowning. Now, he may be at home with his kids. This guy may be not at home with his kids. This guy may be in jail. This guy may be a stepfather.
Right.
But we're rowing. If we see them drowning, we pick them up out of the water and say, hey, here you go. But the difference between us and most nonprofits is we hand that dad an oar right away.
Right.
If he's not starting to row, hey, it was great, get a rest, and we're putting you back in the water. Because if you're not ready to heal in motion, I am not in any way, shape, or form in a position to carry you.
Right. Yeah, in the end, it's our own lives.
It's your own life.
We have to be self-feeders,
I
right?
cannot want it more than you.
Right.
And it was a hard lesson that I had to learn, but sometimes you get really excited and you see potential, you know, and I realize that that's what, you know, it's a very female trait, so to speak, to see potential, because that's what wives do. They say, ooh, I see this husband, he could be great.
Yeah.
And they help you come alongside as your helpmate, and then the two of you create greatness. That's how it's designed to be. I'm not going to be your helpmate.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
your tough love.
I'm going to be your brother.
Yeah.
In arms.
Come along.
I tell
alongside,
them, like, we're building a wall and fighting a war. So if you need me to stop, you're in the wrong place, because it's a war going on and I'm building a wall. So you can either join or not.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it's harder to get people engaged and active. One, because, you know, when you talk about fatherhood, you know, dads that are at home, they tend to believe, oh, well, I don't need it. It's not for me. And then the guys that are, you know, hearing the stats of what's going on with, you know, the inappropriateness of, you know, people, no matter what their status is in life. Some of these people are arresting other people, you know, and they are still doing these egregious things. And we don't think about how much pain is happening in these men's lives. So when we create ecclesia around the topic of fatherhood, what we then do is we start to look at, well, what does fatherhood mean? What does your voice, what does your touch, what does your presence do for your children, for your co-parent, for your spouse, or the lack thereof? You know?
Yeah. The statistics that you threw out today a little bit, 1 in 4 young girls
are molested or raped.
And 1 in 6 boys, and it's probably lower than that because the boys
No,
don't.
it's probably more than that
Yeah,
for
it's
boys,
more.
because
yeah, that's what I mean.
the boys don't report it as much. It's 1 in 6 for men. And then they say it's more like 1 in 4. So just think about that.
Yeah.
Out of every 8 kids, there's a potential all 8 could have been, you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
Or 2 out
or
of the
at
8.
least 2.
Yeah, yeah.
At least 2 out of the 8.
And a lot of that relates back to dads.
100%.
Right, and because the other thing you said is that, you know, it's been proven scientifically that there's a pitch when a mom says something that it doesn't register with the kid.
It doesn't.
But when that dad and that deeper tone
That voice
hits it,
boom,
that that's
It
the
gets
only
action.
tone they're going to hear.
It gets action.
Yeah.
And that's why they're both necessary. Like, parents are intrinsically valuable to their children. There's not one person that's any more valuable, but they've sold this dream that, oh, well, it must be better for mom to do this. It must be better because mom has that. No, they're both. Both. The brain development and all that comes from the father's voice. You know, the placenta is created by the father. You know, and it's crazy because if you see the little sperm, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see it? What happens is it turns just like this, and it becomes the brain and the spine.
Mm.
Fathers are absolutely vital. They determine the sex. They determine so many external things. The mom is who gives all the nutrients. That's why they have pregnancy brain and all this stuff. Like, those things are real.
Yeah.
And if you're a mom trying to get through life as a pregnant woman and you don't have someone helping you, that's the worst thing that could happen to a society, is where we don't have both parents able to be engaged and involved. You know, some would argue not to be married, or, you know, it would be an egregious issue for them not to be married. I'm saying we're so far away, I just want them to work together. The marriage will take care of itself once we get people to get into harmonious relationships.
Well, I think that's a key, that the couple might not be together,
Right.
but the dad can't be absent from the relationship with the children.
Can't be alienated, and he also can't make excuses.
They don't have to be great spouses, but they have to be great co-parents.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And those are tough situations,
Yeah.
you know, because other people end up coming into that. But, you know, and, you know, we talked about in class today, you were talking about when that urge comes, you know, that male urge comes. And
Transmute it.
Yeah, that you have got to be able to learn how to control that urge, or that urge is going to control you.
100%.
Right? And
100%.
all of a sudden, you know, whether it was accidental, whether it was whatever, there's all these kids, you know, whether it's because, you know, somebody believes that, man, if I have more kids, I get more government assistance, and therefore that's better, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Nobody thinks about the child in that. They're thinking about the statistic and the amount of money that comes in.
Oh, yeah.
The women and the guys are usually gone.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of, I don't know if the right word, but maybe it is entrapment out there, that the ladies that are out there, man, that's the devil's playground.
It is, 100%.
Right? I mean, they're not making good decisions. None of us as dads of a daughter would want our daughter to say, gosh, if I have 5 kids, regardless of how many dads there are,
Yeah.
I get more assistance.
Yeah.
And I don't think any dad, good, bad, or indifferent, would say I'd want that for my daughter.
Yeah.
Right? So
I don't even, you know, the dads that do that, that's not smart on their end. You know, they're like, I got all my kids. Yeah, but you shouldn't. You should be able to co-parent. Like, but again, that says more about society than it does individual parents. You know, when we talk about the village, you know, there's a reason that we don't say government. The reason is because the government is a direct reflection of the community. And when the government is all corrupt and all the things that everybody wants to say, no matter who's in office, you got to say, okay, well, what is causing this decay? And the answer is always resoundingly, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, it says the family is always the issue. You cannot have a strong community without a strong family. You cannot. There's just not a way, because strong families are what goes into the schools. They're the ones that create the businesses. They're the ones that buy and sell the houses. They're the ones that control the churches. That is what a community, that is what a village is. And if you don't have that, every child deserves 4 grandparents, 2 parents, brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, and neighbors. That's what our village is. And then we put that together with our community being small businesses, churches, and school districts. When we have those 2 together, that's when we have sustainable life. And that's what that is. And we're just trying to recreate that. But a lot of people are fighting that only because it's God's way of doing it. But I tell them, whether it's a nonprofit, a business, or an organization, it works the same. Because every school has a board of directors, right? So does nonprofits. And so does a business if it's doing it right. They have investors. They have the people that are above them, right?
Sure.
Even the bankers. Then you have your CEOs or your principals and counselors. Those act as your parents. Those investors and those people on those boards act as your grandparents. And then the people you serve are the children. And if you take a business and you take your CEO out of the business, who does that? I mean,
Right.
one of the board members can come down for a little bit, but they can't do the day-to-day.
Right.
Or what if you take both of those jobs and put them on one person? Are they working in the business or working on the business?
Yeah.
More
Very
than
good
likely,
point.
they're working in it. Well, then who's working on it? That means now the children are running the asylum, which is where we are as a society today. We have kids that are telling parents what to do, not for just the sake of, absentee fathers or, alienation and things of that nature, but there's also opportunities for little kids to make millions of dollars. How do you parent a child that makes 10 times more money than you? And now they can do it playing video games. They can do it, they can get on an OnlyFans at 18 and completely just ruin their lives because they're trying to make a quick buck.
Right.
And those are the kinds of things we don't see as a society anymore. This is the first generation of people that can say, hey, isn't this your teacher on this? And it be a full-on porn display of your child's teacher. And their only argument is, what I do with my free time is none of your business. And to me, as a society, that shows how far we have come.
Sad.
And that is crazy to me, but that is the thought process. So being imprisoned or being in these situations are the least of your worries. The least.
Yeah. Well, it's, you asked the question today, how many of the guys that were incarcerated had kids? I don't know if there was
only 2 people that didn't raise their hands.
And I think if you would have gone deeper and asked them how many kids and how many baby mamas,
you
would have found a lot. So that one room that we're able to impact today and hopefully impact it and change their thought process, their heart, their posture, and help them to start to take ownership. Think of there were 34 men in the room, times all those kids, times everything. You're talking about impacting well over 100 people.
Yeah.
So on that, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you are going to definitely be and they're already asking, how soon is he coming back? How soon is he coming back? So you're going to be a frequent speaker because there's just so much more. You impacted them today. We planted some great seeds today, but now we have a responsibility to continue through you, through me, through other leaders that come out here to continue to help weed the garden, to be able to show them how to fertilize this thing properly, how to take ownership of it, because in the end, that's what it comes down to. Is regardless of your situation, whatever's happened to you in the past, whatever you've done in the past, at some point in time, you have to take ownership of your life and decide to change and to bring it full circle. That's exactly what you did when you were incarcerated. That's what you challenged them to do today, was you got to take ownership and you got to live today like what you want your tomorrow to be. So, man, I am incredibly grateful for the time out there. We'll definitely be doing more of these, I can tell, in the future. I think we can do stuff together that are going to impact dads and men and families is the result of that outside of those prison walls. We're not going to wait for those guys to get out to make an impact. You're already out front line. So, man, I just pray blessings over you. I pray clarity over you. I pray drive and support over all you're doing, over all we're doing, because it certainly is an important mission that God's entrusted to us.
Amen.